LoveLore Library. Chapter 872. But after knowing her feelings for her, she began to resist her. New by Chinese website. Speaking of which, she should have returned to the northern underworld and gone to the Xianming sect, right? The fastest network update mobile/m. She hadn't seen her in a while. As for her, she did not know what had happened and did not take the initiative to look for her. Empress Dowager, you don't know how to call her when you have good food, but you call Shen Yueji instead. Pang Yuan's dissatisfied voice came from outside. After hearing her voice, everyone's expression changed. Only Shen Yueji still had a calm expression on her face. Senior servant Zhu hurriedly stood up. Greetings, Imperial Consort Nyang. Pang Yuan glanced at her with a smile. Ben Gong can't accept Zhu Momo's gift. Quickly sit down, quickly sit down. As she spoke, she quickly walked to the Empress Dowager's side, took the initiative to hold the Empress Dowager's arm, and sat on the Empress Dowager's right side. On the left side of Cian was Shen Yueji. She picked up a piece of vegetable and placed it in the Empress Dowager's bowl. Really, some people have no eyesight at all. The Empress Dowager is an elder, the Empress Dowager of a country. Why don't you think about your own status? How can you let the Empress Dowager put food in your bowl? The Empress Dowager loves to eat these. Her gave them to you, and this piece of meat. Imperial concubine Pang, the Empress Dowager is an elder. As an elder, it's better for her to eat more vegetables. It's good for her body. If she eats more meat. Shen Yueji, what do you mean? Do you still think that this consort can harm the Empress Dowager? Shen Yueji smiled faintly. Imperial consort has misunderstood. I am only thinking of the Empress Dowager's health. It is not as you say, that I am deliberately causing trouble for you. In Pang Yuan's eyes, Shen Yueji was deliberately making trouble for her. She had just picked a piece of meat for the Empress Dowager, but Shen Yueji directly said that the Empress Dowager was an elder and it wasn't good to eat meat. The Empress Dowager had such a noble status. If she wanted to eat the best, she would wear the best. Why should she be a vegetarian? Oh. Soon, her eyes narrowed dangerously. Do you mean that you despise the Empress Dowager for being old? I didn't say that. I was just reminding you out of goodwill. Besides, when you reach a certain age, you can't just not accept it, right? Some people like to listen to flattery, even if they know that the flattery is a lie. Some people still enjoy listening to it. It just so happens that I'm not a person who likes to lie. Compared to flattery, one's body is more important. I'm just reminding you out of goodwill and telling you the truth. Pang Yuan gritted her teeth fiercely. This slut had a sharp tongue. She knew that she couldn't win against this slut. Since he couldn't win, he might as well not say anything. She glared at her fiercely and continued to put meat into the Empress Dowager's bowl. Not long after, the empty bowl in front of the Empress Dowager was immediately filled with meat. Just looking at the greasy meat made people lose their appetite. It was okay to eat less of this kind of meat, but if there was too much, it would make people nauseous. Cian didn't like eating meat, especially this kind of greasy meat. She preferred to eat fish. She felt that fish was light and good for the body. Pang Yuan was obviously angry with Shen Yueji and used her as a shield. The older she was, the less meat she could eat. Pang Yuan put more meat into her bowl. There was a hint of threat in her expectant eyes. It was obvious that she wanted her to eat all the meat and then prove to Shen Yueji that she liked to eat meat and could eat a lot of meat. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 873. She clapped her hands. Xiao came in with something covered with a red cloth. She looked quite mysterious. Peng Yuan smiled proudly. Empress Dowager, guess what kind of treasure Wan found for you? Oh, I didn't know that Wan cares about me. You even know to give me a gift. This was quite beyond Cian's expectation. She smiled with her eyes slightly narrowed. She followed her words and said, what will Wan give me? Let AI Jia think about it carefully. www.com. She thought for a long time, but she really couldn't figure out what Peng Yuan would give her. She shook her head. It's really hard for me, this old woman. I really don't know what you are selling. Let Xiao lift the red cloth and let me see. Why are you giving AI Jia a gift out of nowhere? She was the Empress Dowager of the Northern Underworld. She didn't care about ordinary gifts. Peng Yuan's status was not low, so the gift she gave must not be simple. As expected, although Xiao lifted the red cloth mysteriously, she saw that under the red cloth, there was a white fox fur sable. Its fur was of the highest quality. Moreover, it was rare to find such a large fox with such smooth fur in the Dark North Kingdom. Even the wives of the aristocratic families in the capital could not achieve such a glossy fur. It was the only one of its kind. Empress Dowager, look, this fox fur sable was something Wan obtained with great difficulty. As soon as Wan obtained it, I immediately gave it to you to show my filial piety. The weather is getting cold, so you can use this fox fur sable to make some clothes. Peng Yuan didn't notice the great change of Cian's expression. She was still complacent. Caught off guard, she was slapped in the face. She was so shocked that her whole body froze for a moment. When she saw that it was Cian who slapped her, she covered her face and stared at her in disbelief. Empress Dowager, what did I do wrong? Why did you hit me? Fox fur. Peng Yuan, I thought you were straightforward, but I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Out of anger, Cian's chest heaved up and down. There was no time to reprimand him. As soon as he finished speaking, his vision suddenly darkened, and he fainted. Nanny Zhu reacted quickly and reached out to support Cian, who was on the verge of collapse, in her arms. As Cian fainted, Shuangxi was also shocked. I'll go call the imperial physician, there's no need, Miss Double Happiness. The Empress Dowager is just angry. It won't be a problem. She'll be fine after resting for a while. Nanny Zhu stopped Shuangxi and helped Cian into the inner hall. She quickly came out and looked at Peng Yuan, whose face was pale from fright and unable to speak. Since Guifei Nyang is sincerely filial to the Empress Dowager, you should know what to avoid and ask about the things that the Empress Dowager doesn't like, so as to avoid making a fool of yourself. This servant will not tell His Majesty about this matter. I also hope that Guifei Nyang will take care of herself. Peng Yuan didn't know what had happened at all. She loved the fox fur sable so much that she couldn't put it down. Originally, she planned to keep it for herself. If it weren't for so many things that happened in the palace and the sudden appearance of Shen Yueji, she could only reluctantly take out her favorite fox fur sable to please the Empress Dowager when she learned that Shen Yueji had been called to eat by the Empress Dowager. Originally, she just wanted to make the Empress Dowager happy, but she never thought. First published on the new August Chinese network. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu Literature. Chapter 874. They probably didn't expect this woman to be so scheming. In the harem, there were many concubines like her. She had already disposed of them. How could they have the chance to use her to please her brother, the Emperor and the Empress Dowager? If she was willing to sit at the same table with Shen Yueji just now, it was because of the Empress Dowager. She wanted to compete with her. After all, the Empress Dowager had watched her grow up. She didn't believe that the Empress Dowager would favor her, an outsider. On the surface, the Empress Dowager said that she was wrong, but in fact, she knew that the Empress Dowager was still on her side. But now, how could the Empress Dowager only be partial to her? She knew that she was secretly competing with Shin Yueji, but she still sided with her. She ate what she gave her, but not what she ate. Thinking of this, Pang Yuan felt inexplicably wronged, but she didn't want to lose her temper in front of Shin Yueji, lest Shin Yueji think that she was easy to bully. She was an imperial concubine of the Dark North Kingdom. In this harem, who dared to look down on her? Her brother, the emperor, only had a momentary liking for her. She believed that one day, her brother, the emperor, would despise her. Thinking of this, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better. Although she was unwilling to admit it, she still said, I almost forgot about this. Since the Empress Dowager doesn't have a good appetite, why didn't she tell me so that I could get some vegetables for you? Look at what I'm doing now. I'm afraid that people will laugh at me. Xian laughed. In this harem, who dares to laugh at you? Is no exception. Shin Yueji smiled slightly. Of course. How did you find the time to come to my Mercy Palace today to visit me? Xian glanced at her and asked. Pang Yuan pouted. Empress Dowager, you're talking as if I'm not filial to you. When did I not come to visit you? Unless I'm busy talking to my brother. Calm. Speaking of this, she also glanced at Shin Yueji quite proudly. She thought that this woman would be a little emotional when she mentioned her brother, but she didn't even want to look at her. Instead, she concentrated on drinking tea. This infuriated her so much that she gritted her teeth. Empress Dowager, came prepared this time. She's not like someone who came to freeload. Guifei Nyang's words are wrong. Shen Gunyang was invited by the Empress Dowager to have a meal together with this servant, and is not here to freeload. Nanny Zhu kindly reminded her. Pang Yuan fiercely glared at her and put on a fake smile. Shen Gunyang is really likable. It hasn't been long since you came to the northern underworld, but you've already moved the white-haired granny. Now even Zhu Momo, the person who is the most difficult for her to take a liking to, is now full of praise for you. Perhaps this is the difference between me and the imperial consort. You. All right. Xian waved his hand and glanced at her. Did you come to see me, or did you want me to watch you two argue? After all, I am an old man. I don't want to get involved in the affairs of you young people. You just need to remember what I told you before. Empress Dowager. Pang Yuan tugged at her wide sleeves and said coquettishly, look at you. Why would come here to bicker with an irrelevant person? Has come to deliver something to you. Take a look. Huaxin, if you want to chat about explosively cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, get yourself with more like-minded people, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chatting about life and looking for a bosom friend. Chapter 875. She clapped her hands. Xiao came in with something covered with a red cloth. She looked quite mysterious. Pang Yuan smiled proudly. Empress Dowager, guess what kind of treasure found for you? Oh, I didn't know that cares about me. You even know to give me a gift. This was quite beyond Xian's expectation. She smiled with her eyes slightly narrowed. She followed her words and said, what will give me? Let Aijia think about it carefully. Calm. She thought for a long time, but she really couldn't figure out what Pang Yuan would give her. She shook her head. It's really hard for me. I really don't know what you are selling. Quickly let Xiao lift the red cloth and let me see. Why are you giving Ai Jia a gift out of nowhere? She was the Empress Dowager of the Northern Underworld. Ordinary gifts were nothing to her. Peng Yuan's status was not low, so the gift she took out must not be simple. As expected. Although Xiao lifted the red cloth mysteriously, she saw that under the red cloth, there was a white fox fur sable. Its fur was of the highest quality. Moreover, it was rare to find such a large fox with such smooth fur in the Dark North Kingdom. Even the wives of the noble families in the capital city could not achieve such a glossy fur with a fox fur sable. It was the only one of its kind. Empress Dowager, look, this fox fur sable was something Wan obtained with great difficulty. As soon as Wan obtained it, I immediately gave it to you to show my filial piety. The weather is getting cold, so you can use this fox fur sable to make a set of clothes. Peng Yuan didn't notice the great change of Xian's expression. She was still complacent. Caught off guard, she was slapped in the face. She was so shocked that her whole body froze for a moment. When she saw that it was Xian who slapped her, she covered her face and stared at her in disbelief. Empress Dowager, what did I do wrong? Why did you hit me? Fox fur. Peng Yuan, I thought you were straightforward, but I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Out of anger, Xian's chest heaved up and down. There was no time to reprimand him. As soon as he finished speaking, his vision suddenly darkened, and he fainted. Nanny Zhu reacted quickly and reached out to support Xian, who was on the verge of collapse, in her arms. As Xian fainted, Shuangxi was also shocked. I'll go call the imperial physician, there's no need, Miss Double Happiness. The Empress Dowager is just angry. It's not a big deal. She'll be fine after a short rest. Nanny Zhu stopped Shuangxi and helped Xian into the inner hall. She quickly came out and looked at Peng Yuan, whose face was pale from fright and unable to speak. Since Guifei Nyang is sincerely filial to the Empress Dowager, you should know what to avoid and ask about the things that the Empress Dowager doesn't like, so as to avoid making a fool of yourself. This servant will not tell His Majesty about this matter. I also hope that Guifei Nyang will behave herself. Peng Yuan didn't know what had happened at all. She loved the fox fur sable so much that she couldn't put it down. Originally, she planned to keep it for herself. If it weren't for so many things that happened in the palace and the sudden appearance of Shen Yueji, she could only reluctantly take out her favorite fox fur sable to please the Empress Dowager when she learned that Shen Yueji had been called to eat by the Empress Dowager. Originally, she just wanted to make the Empress Dowager happy, but she never thought. First published on the new August Chinese network. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu Literature. Chapter 876. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? Who would have thought that when the Empress Dowager saw the fox fur sable, she was not as happy as she had expected. Instead, she was so angry that she fainted. Nanny Zhu, Imperial Consort, it's better if you take this fox fur sable back. This servant still has to serve the Empress Dowager. Peng Yuan had no choice. She didn't know what had happened to the Empress Dowager, but she had become like this. Peng Yuan was afraid that if she stayed any longer, when her brother, the Emperor, came, she wouldn't be able to deal with him. She could only leave with red eyes. Before she left, she glared at Shen Yueji. The Empress Dowager was already like this, but she could still sit there calmly, not worried at all. Miss Shen, the Empress Dowager suddenly fell ill. I'm afraid she can't. It's okay, my maid also knows some medical skills. Why don't we let Double Happiness take a look at the Empress Dowager? Nanny Zhu didn't hesitate and made way for them. When the Empress Dowager was young, she raised a fox. When she led them into the inner hall, Granny Zhu suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at Shen Yueji. Shen Yueji nodded. I guessed it. Just now, I saw that Miss Shen was so calm and composed, unlike Imperial Consort Pang who was panicking. I guessed that Miss Shen must have guessed something. When the Empress Dowager was young, she raised the fox for 3 years and named it Tuanzi. Because Tuanzi was born with snow-white skin and was very intelligent, it even saved the Empress Dowager's life when she was helpless. But later, it died trying to save the Empress Dowager and was tortured to death. The Empress Dowager was heartbroken, and she couldn't get over it for a long time. Even after so many years, some people and some things will almost be forgotten after a long time. But Tuanzi's importance in Empress Dowager's heart is equal to that of the late emperor. People all think that Empress Dowager is the happiest person in the world. She married the emperor and got so much favor, but they don't know, the Empress Dowager didn't have a happy life. Before she met the late emperor, the only person she could rely on was Tuanzi. After Tuanzi died, if she hadn't met the late emperor, the Empress Dowager wouldn't have become what she is today. Nanny Zhu sighed and said, just now, concubine Pang sent a fox fur sable. Its smooth and white fur is very similar to the scene when Tuanzi was skinned alive. On the computer, that was why the Empress Dowager, he was so agitated and angry that he became like this. This matter was not worth concealing in Dark North. Through this matter, it was enough to show that Pang Yuan had never really taken the Empress Dowager seriously during these years of living together, even in her heart. If she really had the Empress Dowager as an elder in her heart, she would not have been afraid of the Empress Dowager, would not have known nothing about the Empress Dowager's dislike, and would not have come here with the fox fur sable to claim credit. Originally, she had good intentions, but it turned out to be a fool, resulting in the current situation. Shuangxi checked the Empress Dowager's pulse seriously. Indeed, it was just anger attacking the heart. There was no general problem. He would be fine after resting for a while. Seeing that the Empress Dowager was fine, Shen Yueji took her leave. Nanny Zhu escorted them out of Ci and Palace. Nanny Zhu. Miss Shen. There's something I don't understand. I'd like to ask Nanny Zhu for advice. Zhu Mama nodded. If Miss Shen has anything to say, please ask. This servant will definitely answer truthfully. Today, the Empress Dowager suddenly invited me to dinner. I wonder if it is as I thought, a Hongmen banquet? New by Chinese website. Come if you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat, chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 877. Miss. Faced with Shening expressing her suspicions so straightforwardly, not only was Shuangxi so shocked that she wanted to stop her, but even Nanny Zhu couldn't help raising her head to take a few more glances at Shening. Suddenly, Nanny Zhu smiled and asked, Miss Shen, why do you have such thoughts? The Empress Dowager wants to understand me, but after the last meeting, she found that she didn't see through me. Although I'm the woman that the Emperor likes, she is the Emperor's biological mother after all. Apart from that, the identity of a member of the royal family is that a mother has no choice about what kind of woman her son marries. She wants to test me to see if I'm suitable to be the Emperor's woman. www.com. If the Empress Dowager wakes up and hears Miss Shen's words, she will be so happy that she can't close her mouth. Why? Zhu Mamich shook her head and smiled. Miss Shen is really smart. Not only the Emperor didn't misjudge you, but also the Empress Dowager. Miss Shen's guess is right. The Empress Dowager really wants to test you, and this servant also knows about this test. She took a step forward, the Empress Dowager originally wanted to pretend to be poisoned after eating the food that Miss Shen gave her. She wanted to see your reaction and how the Emperor would deal with this matter. Would she be like the other women in the harem, so scared that they turned pale and didn't even dare to explain, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing to beg for forgiveness, or loudly refuting for herself? Miss Shen, women who enter the harem must have courage and insight. If they don't even have courage and intelligence, they are not suitable to survive in the harem. No matter what happens between Miss Shen and the Emperor in the future, at least for now, you are in the harem. In front of so many women in the harem, things like initial intentions are not suitable. Listening to Zhu Mami's words, Shen Yueji couldn't help but admire Xian. According to her understanding of Xian, she knew that after the Empress Dowager entered the palace, she was favored by the former emperor. For her, the former emperor even left the harem of 3,000 beauties. No man in this world could do this, but the former emperor did it. Just from this, it could be seen that in the eyes of the former emperor, the throne and her, which was more important. She had been protected so well by the late emperor, so she knew that in the harem, everyone was thinking about self-preservation. Everyone would climb up at any cost in order to get what they wanted. Perhaps, the reason why the former emperor dispersed his harem of 3,000 beauties was to protect her. Thank you for reminding me, Granny Zhu. I'll keep it in mind. She said goodbye to Nanny Zhu. Shen Yueji returned to Xingyang Palace. Along the way, Shuangxi followed behind her. His mind was in a reverie, but he could not come up with a general idea. Huaxin Originals, domain names, please remember, Miss. Hearing her calling herself, Shen Yueji stopped and looked back at her. What's wrong? There's one thing this servant doesn't understand. What is it? That's what Nanny Zhu meant. What does she mean by first love? Isn't it inappropriate for so many women in the harem? Hearing this, Shen Yueji suddenly smiled and tapped her head. Double happiness, do you know how long you can survive if you really enter the harem with your IQ? Shuangxi, I won't enter the palace. Miss, don't make fun of me. I don't want to be a pet in a golden cage. I yearn for freedom. Oh. Freedom. If you follow me into the palace, won't you also be a pet in a golden cage? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature. Chapter 878. That's not the same. Miss is a pet, and a servant is the water and food that the pet drinks. The nature is different. How can a servant be so precious? Shen Yueji was amused by her analogy. Granny Zhu is implying something, including Shangwan Mei coming to see me. What? The Empress Dowager knows about Shangwan Mei coming to see you. The entire Dark North Kingdom belongs to the Empress Dowager. What doesn't she know? Shen Yueji rolled her eyes. Granny Zhu means the Empress Dowager. She wants me to agree to cooperate with Shangwan Mei and get Pang Yuan off the stage first. This, Shuangxi found it hard to believe. Miss, don't you think the Empress Dowager is being too ruthless? She watched Pang Yuan grow up, and we've only been in the Dark North Kingdom for a few days, but the Empress Dowager is on the same side as us for you. Is there a conspiracy? Although she watched Pang Yuan grow up, she's still an outsider's child to her. In addition, she's indulged and spoiled Pang Yuan all these years. Who knows how many shameful things she's done for Pang Yuan. The Empress Dowager's kindness to Pang Yuan is just a compensation to an old friend. If an old friend didn't save her, do you think Pang Yuan would be here today? Miss, you mean, the Empress Dowager has lost her patience with Consort Pang? Shen Yueji nodded. Didn't you see how the Empress Dowager looked at the fox? It's obvious that Granny Zhu didn't exaggerate. The Empress Dowager has deep feelings for foxes, but Pang Yuan keeps violating the Empress Dowager's taboo. How can the Empress Dowager continue to tolerate her? But Shuangxi wanted to say something else, but she stopped talking after thinking of something. Shen Yueji didn't ask anymore. The only thing I don't understand is that Granny Zhu revealed that I'm working with Shangwan Mei. But if we really bring down Pang Yuan and make public what she's done, not only the officials in the court, but also the people in the capital, who can really forgive her? Unless... She paused. Unless the Empress Dowager left a perfect plan for Pang Yuan. In this way, even if she is brought down, she can keep her life. Her father is the Grand Tutor of the Northern Underworld dynasty. As long as her father is here, she can live a carefree life of wealth and splendor. This servant also feels that Mrs. words are reasonable. It seems that the Empress Dowager must have made a foolproof plan for Pang Yuan. Otherwise, she wouldn't have allowed Miss to join hands with Shangwan Mei. But isn't Shangwan Mei untrustworthy? Miss, the Empress Dowager has already vaguely revealed this layer of meaning. What do you think? Do you want to join hands with Shangwan Mei? Shen Yueji shook her head. Why don't you think about it? Where did Pang Yuan get the fox fur sable? How did such a precious thing end up in her hands? This fox fur sable must have been given to her by someone. She wouldn't forget the look of envy and reluctance in Pang Yuan's eyes when she gave the fox fur sable to the Empress Dowager. If it was her own thing, she would have liked it very much. But after wearing it for a while, she would have liked it less. But Pang Yuan was different. Not only her facial expression, but also her demeanor, including when she asked Xiao, to take out the fox fur sable, the reluctance and love in her eyes. Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Prince Regent, Messing with Claw Bookhouse, for free. Chapter 879. At first, Yu wanted to say that Pang Yuan was shameless. However, because of Pang Yuan's status and the fact that she was in a fit of anger, she didn't dare to believe that Pang Yuan would really kill her if she really dared to say it. Therefore, she forcibly replaced the shameless words that were already at the tip of her tongue with ruthlessness. The fastest network update on the computer, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better when she saw that it wasn't a verbal abuse, but a simple reason. He was also less impulsive. But just as Yu lowered her guard, she suddenly raised her hand and gave Shangwan Mei another tight slap. 2 slaps landed on her delicate face. Due to her anger, she was as strong as a man. Shangwan Mei felt that both sides of her cheeks were in so much pain that she could not control herself. Especially, both sides of her cheeks seemed to be bleeding. She swallowed the blood that had come to her mouth. Looking at Pang Yuan, he suddenly laughed. Noble consort Pang, now you've slapped me and vented your anger. You're Grand Preceptor Pang's daughter, and you've never suffered any grievances since you were a child. You should know that before I entered the palace, I was the apple of my family's eye in the Shangwan residence. Neither my father nor my mother had ever hit me. Now that I've been slapped twice by you, if you don't give me a reasonable explanation, my Shangwan family will pursue this matter to the end even if we have to pay the price in blood. Originals, domain names, please remember, pursue the matter to the end. Pang Yuan smiled coldly. How? Just because of your Shangwan family? Or do you want to bring your father here? Shangwan Mei, you were right about one thing. Although the Shangwan family is an important official in the Dark North Kingdom and your father is a first-rank official, I can revoke your father's official position with just a word. My father only needs to charge your father with any crime. Not to mention becoming a commoner, it wouldn't be too much for me to take your life. Be it the ministers of the imperial court or the common people of the capital, they all flock to my Pang family, not your Shangwan family. Imperial consort Pang, don't push me too far. You step down. Empress. I'm telling you to back off, can't you hear me? Yu stomped her feet in anger but did not dare to say a word. She could only unwillingly retreat behind Sheng Wanmei. She was afraid that Pang Yuan would attack her concubine again, so she glared at Pang Yuan like a tiger watching its prey. She was deeply afraid that Pang Yuan would attack again. She reacted quickly and was able to stop her in time. These two slaps were ruthless enough. Pang Yuan was also tired. He shook his numb hands. The numbness in his hands had not subsided for a long time. Sheng Wanmei, are you trying to harm me? It would have been better if you hadn't mentioned the fox-fur sable. Pang Yuan's stomach was originally filled with anger, but because of the two slaps, she felt much better. Who knew that you would suddenly mention it again? Without a doubt, this was purposely poking at her sore spot. If she didn't give her a slap, how would she be able to vent her anger? The slap that the Empress Dowager gave her, she still faintly felt pain, especially in front of that slut Shin Yueji. She didn't know how much face she had lost. Did you already know that the Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young and that she had a deep relationship with that fox? And that fox was also skinned alive by someone. Sheng Wanmei was stunned when she heard this. Sister, what are you talking about? The Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young. Sheng Wanmei. Don't play dumb with me. Do you think that I will believe you if you pretend to be innocent? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 880. Even though the Empress Dowager was experienced and could see things clearly, she could not see that Pang Yuan had been tricked by someone, and that the person who had tricked her was Sheng Wanmei. Shuangxi felt that she had to tell the Empress Dowager about this. First published on the website. Calm. Why should we tell the Empress Dowager? She has already made it very clear. She wants us to fight among ourselves. Whether we live or die, it has nothing to do with her. Shuangxi suddenly went online and hugged her arm. Miss, what are you saying? The son-in-law cannot bear to see anything happen to you. Even if we die, it will be them. Shin Yueji poked her nose in amusement. Moreover, we are not allowed to interfere in this matter. I believe that Pang Yuan has already gone to Sheng Wanmei's place. No matter how smart Sheng Wanmei is, she would not have expected that Pang Yuan would go crazy and not care about her status or the occasion. Then, miss, what do you think Pang Yuan will do to Sheng Wanmei? Concubine Mei will naturally be beaten up. To be precise, Pang Yuan will go to Charming Palace. Sheng Wanmei will welcome her with a smile, but Pang Yuan will not give her a chance to explain. She will slap her to vent her anger first. At this moment, in Charming Palace, Pang Yuan had been expected to come. Sheng Wanmei had already ordered people to stand guard outside. Especially when she saw Pang Yuan storming into the main hall. To be honest, Sheng Wanmei was shocked. She thought that Pang Yuan would at least put on the airs of an imperial concubine. She did not expect that she would be so angry that she did not even put on airs and rushed in. She quickly got up and welcomed her with a smile. Slap. A slap landed on her face, catching her off guard. She covered the swollen side of her face, and even the corner of her mouth was bleeding. Sheng Wanmei's expression did not change. Yu, who was beside her, quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood from her mouth. Pang Yuan was not satisfied with the slap and wanted to hit her again. Yu, was anxious to protect her heart. She stood in front of Sheng Wanmei and took the slap. Imperial consort, I don't know what mistake this servant's consort has made to make you so angry that you angrily rushed over and hit my consort without distinguishing between right and wrong. Her voice was filled with anger, and her eyes were red with anger. Your Pang family has an illustrious position in the court, but that doesn't mean that my Shangguan family can be bullied by you. Imperial consort, I hope that you can conduct yourself with dignity. Self-respect. Pang Yuan sneered coldly, not taking her threat seriously at all. Seeing that Yu was protecting Shangguan Mei and that she couldn't hit Shangguan Mei, she couldn't help but get even angrier. She slapped Yu even harder. You lowly servant girl, get out of my way. It's not up to you to tell me how to punish someone. Today, I'm going to beat her to death. Shangguan Mei's eyes were cold under the curtain. Your Highness, do you know what kind of behavior you are doing now? First, domain name. Please remember Yu was so angry that she couldn't care less about the difference between master and servant. She glared fiercely at Shangguan Mei. You should know that my consort treats Imperial consort Pang with sincerity. Even after receiving such a precious fox fur sable, Imperial consort Pang liked it very much. However, when she thought that Imperial consort Pang liked it even more, she endured the pain and gave the fox fur sable to Imperial consort Pang. Who would have thought that Imperial consort Pang would turn against her the moment she received it? There must be a limit to being heartless. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 881. At first, Yu wanted to say that Pang Yuan was shameless. However, because of Pang Yuan's status and the fact that she was in a fit of anger, she didn't dare to believe that Pang Yuan would really kill her if she really dared to say it. Therefore, she forcibly replaced the shameless words that were already at the tip of her tongue with ruthlessness. The fastest network update on the computer, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better when she saw that it wasn't a verbal abuse, but a simple reason. He was also less impulsive. But just as Yu lowered her guard, she suddenly raised her hand and gave Shangguan Mei another tight slap. 2 slaps landed on her delicate face. Due to her anger, she was as strong as a man. Shangguan Mei felt that both sides of her cheeks were in so much pain that she could not control herself. Especially, both sides of her cheeks seemed to be bleeding. She swallowed the blood that had come to her mouth. Looking at Pang Yuan, he suddenly laughed. Noble consort Pang, now you've slapped me and vented your anger. You're Grand Preceptor Pang's daughter, and you've never suffered any grievances since you were a child. You should know that before I entered the palace, I was the apple of my family's eye in the Shangguan residence. Neither my father nor my mother had ever hit me. Now that I've been slapped twice by you, if you don't give me a reasonable explanation, my Shangguan family will pursue this matter to the end, even if we have to pay the price in blood. Originals, domain names, please remember, pursue the matter to the end. Pang Yuan smiled coldly. How? Just because of your Shangguan family? Or do you want to bring your father here? Shangguan Mei, you were right about one thing. Although the Shangguan family is an important official in the Dark North Kingdom and your father is a first-rank official, I can revoke your father's official position with just a word. My father only needs to charge your father with any crime. Not to mention becoming a commoner, it wouldn't be too much for me to take your life. Be it the ministers of the imperial court or the common people of the capital, they all flock to my Pang family, not your Shangguan family. Imperial consort Pang, don't push me too far. You step down. Empress. I'm telling you to back off, can't you hear me? You stomped her feet in anger but did not dare to say a word. She could only unwillingly retreat behind Shangguan Mei. She was afraid that Pang Yuan would attack her concubine again, so she glared at Pang Yuan like a tiger watching its prey. She was deeply afraid that Pang Yuan would attack again. She reacted quickly and was able to stop her in time. These 2 slaps were ruthless enough. Pang Yuan was also tired. He shook his numb hands. The numbness in his hands had not subsided for a long time. Shangguan Mei, are you trying to harm me? It would have been better if you hadn't mentioned the fox fur sable. Pang Yuan's stomach was originally filled with anger, but because of the 2 slaps, she felt much better. Who knew that you would suddenly mention it again? Without a doubt, this was purposely poking at her sore spot. If she didn't give her a slap, how would she be able to vent her anger? The slap that the Empress Dowager gave her, she still faintly felt pain, especially in front of that slut Shin Yueji. She didn't know how much face she had lost. Did you already know that the Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young and that she had a deep relationship with that fox? And that fox was also skinned alive by someone. Sheng Guanmei was stunned when she heard this. Sister, what are you talking about? The Empress Dowager used to raise a fox when she was young. Sheng Guanmei. Don't play dumb with me. Do you think that I will believe you if you pretend to be innocent? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 882. Faced with Pang Yuan's ferocious expression, Sheng Guanmei shook her head and revealed a puzzled expression. Imperial concubine Jijie, you've really misunderstood me. I really didn't know that the Empress Dowager had kept foxes. Moreover, when the Empress Dowager was young, I wasn't even born yet. Even elder sister was the same. Neither of us were born yet, so how could we know about the Empress Dowager's youth? In addition, there are new people entering the palace every year, so it's even more impossible for them to remember what happened in the palace, let alone something that happened decades ago. The expression on Sheng Guanmei's face did not seem to be fake. Huaxin Originals, domain names, please remember. Pang Yuan narrowed her eyes. You really don't know? Do you really not know, or are you faking it? She asked again with uncertainty. Sheng Guanmei hurriedly raised her hand and swore, if elder sister doesn't believe me, I can swear to the heavens that younger sister really didn't know about the Empress Dowager keeping a fox. If younger sister is lying, let me be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Seeing her make such a vicious oath, Pang Yuan reluctantly believed her, and her expression softened a little. Sheng Guanmei saw that her expression had softened and heaved a sigh of relief. She had long known that Pang Yuan had a bad temper and was very spoiled. However, she had rarely interacted with her in the past, let alone offending her. If not for the special period, she would not have bothered to deal with such a person. However, he didn't expect that she wasn't just spoiled. It was obvious that she didn't care about the consequences when she was angry. The kind that wanted to put you to death. Big sister, the fox fur sable was given to you by younger sister out of kindness. Why are you bringing it up? Could it be? Seeing the suspicion and understanding on her face, Pang Yuan instantly felt that she couldn't keep her face. She glared at her fiercely and tried to defend herself. What Mimi gave me is naturally the rarest treasure in this world. However, Ben Gong suddenly realized that the weather is getting cold and the Empress Dowager is older than Ben Gong, so she should need this kind of thing more. That's why I'm planning to give the fox fur sable to the Empress Dowager. This way, the Empress Dowager won't have to freeze when the weather turns cold in the future. It was a well-intentioned explanation. Sheng Guanmei nodded and said, it's rare for imperial concubine sister to be so filial. Even I am deeply touched. But sister, you have to believe me. I really don't know what happened to the Empress Dowager. When Pang Yuan heard that she was still explaining about the Empress Dowager, and when she started to explain, she never stopped. This made Pang Yuan instantly recall that time when the Empress Dowager slapped her in Ci and palace. Since young, when had she ever suffered this kind of vexation? She waved her hand impatiently, all right, I didn't say that I don't believe you. It's just that in front of Shin Yueji, Ben Gong has made such a big fool of myself. You can't absolve yourself from the blame. Those 2 slaps just now, Ben Gong didn't hurt you. You only have yourself to blame. Who told you to give Ben Gong the fox fur sable for no reason? Not only did he not get any benefits from the Empress Dowager, he ended up in a mess. www.com. Calm behind Sheng Wanmei, was so angry that her eyes turned red. What did she mean by making such a big fool of herself? Her ladyship could not absolve herself from the blame. What did her ladyship do? It was such a good fox fur sable. Whether it was the workmanship or the color, it was of the best quality. When her ladyship first saw the fox fur sable, she fell in love with it. In the end, when came and saw how much she liked the fox fur sable, her ladyship reluctantly gave it to you. But you gave it to the Empress Dowager in the blink of an eye. She wanted to please the Empress Dowager, but when she couldn't, she blamed her ladyship. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 883. Get up, it's rare for you to have such a kind heart. What you said just now was indeed a good idea. We'll do as you said and do as you said. Not only will I send people to spread the news, but there are also many people from your charm palace. Remember to help me spread the news. Don't worry, elder sister. Elder sister doesn't need to say anything. Younger sister will help elder sister do it. And, it's getting late, so this consort is going back. Have your maidservant get some ice cubes to apply to your face so that the swelling doesn't go down. If others see it, they'll think that this consort is bullying you again. Yes. Jingyang Palace Shin Yueji was bathing when Wu Jiaoyi asked to see her. Wan Qing originally wanted her to go back first and inform her when her master was done bathing. Who knew that Wu Jiaoyi would directly refuse, saying that she would wait here? Seeing that her expression was strange and anxious, Wan Qing thought that she must have something to inform her master. After some thought, he went to tell Double Happiness. Shuangshi brought the fragrant dew over. After hearing Wan Qing's words, he paused and smiled. Wan Qing, young miss said that this Wu Jiaoyi is a good person to make friends with. She's not a bad person, so you don't need to be so wary of her. Since she came to find young miss, she must have something to tell young Mississippi. Let her wait in the main hall. When young miss is done bathing, she will go see her. Hearing Shuangshi's words, Wan Qing no longer hesitated and said respectfully, yes. Miss, Wu Jiaoyi is here. Wu Jiaoyi. In the bath, hearing Wu Jiaoyi's name, Shin Yueji smiled. What is she doing here? Are you here to bring me food again? From Xianqing's words, it doesn't seem like it. Xianqing said that she was in a hurry to see you, miss. There must be something she wanted to tell you. Oh. Shin Yueji narrowed her eyes and stretched out her hand. Shuangshi's eyes and hands were sharp, so he quickly brought her some clean clothes. After dressing herself up, Shin Yueji left the side hall. Wu Jiaoyi was sitting on a round chair at the side. When she saw her, she quickly got up and greeted, Shin young lady. Do you have something to tell me? Yes. Wu Jiaoyi's demeanor was respectful, not the slightest bit as overbearing as she was in the imperial garden. Now, she was tactfully like a well-educated and well-mannered young lady, without the slightest bit of pampering and barbarism. Shin Yueji increasingly felt that Wu Jiaoyi was someone worth befriending. Wu Jiaoyi looked at her worriedly. Miss Shin, haven't you heard? Heard what? There are many rumors about Miss Shin and the imperial harem. Did Miss Shin go to Ci and Palace to see the Empress Dowager yesterday? Shin Yueji didn't deny it. She nodded and sat on the round chair opposite her. I did. What about it? Then about the Empress Dowager suddenly fainting, Wu Jiaoyi hesitated. She didn't know how to tell her. When she met Shin Yueji's gaze, she became even more worried. everyone in the palace said that Miss Shen went to Xi'an Palace yesterday to please the Empress Dowager. She gave the Empress Dowager a fox fur sable. As a result, she was slapped by the Empress Dowager and fainted from anger. Because His Majesty currently likes Shen young lady, the Empress Dowager was afraid that if His Majesty knew of this matter, it would be difficult on both sides, so she kept it from His Majesty. Nonsense. Without waiting for Shen Yueji to speak, Shuangxi first reprimanded her angrily. Wu Jiaoyi was shocked. As a Jiaoyi, she was full of respect for Shuangxi's maidservant because she was Shen Yueji's person. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 884. The worry on her face increased. I believe that Shen young lady is not a person who fawns on the rich and powerful. So, after hearing the rumors, I quickly came to tell Miss Shen so that you can be prepared. I don't know about the rumors in the harem, to be honest with Wu Jiaoyi. Now that they know I'm favored, they won't gossip in front of me. As for the fox fur, she smiled, I already know who wants to frame me. It must be Pang Yuan. That bitch. Shuangxi gnashed her teeth in anger. I have never seen such a shameless person in my life. She can even turn black into white. The fox fur sable was clearly given to the Empress Dowager by her. It was also her who made the Empress Dowager faint. She was also the one who got slapped by Empress Dowager. She, on the other hand, pushes everything onto you, Mississippi. Does she still have any shame? Miss Shuangxi, what did you say? You said the fox fur was given to Empress Dowager by Imperial Consort Pang. Wu Jiaoyi looked at her in disbelief. What else? Shuangxi glanced at her. Does Wu Jiaoyi really think it's a gift from Miss Shen? No, Wu Jiaoyi shook her head. I know Miss Shen wouldn't do such a thing. There must be something hidden. Maybe someone is trying to frame Miss Shen, but I don't know. She didn't know that the fox fur was given to her by Imperial Consort Pang. When Pang Yuan was mentioned, the worry on Wu Jiaoyi's face deepened. She was most afraid of Shangwan Mei. As for Pang Yuan, she was like a god in her heart. She didn't care about her status. But she didn't expect Imperial Consort Pang to target Shen Yueji. The Pang family's status was like the sun in the sky. Even the emperor had to respect Imperial tutor Pang, and Empress Dowager treated him like an elder brother. If Shen Yueji was targeted by her, it made sense. Everyone in the harem knew that Imperial Consort Pang loved the emperor as much as her own life. All the beautiful women in the harem had been dealt with by Pang Yuan in private. The emperor and Empress Dowager turned a blind eye to it for her father's sake. From this, it could be seen how much Pang Yuan was doted on. Even Shangwan Mei did not dare to offend her, however, he had set his sights on Shen Yueji. Miss Shen, you have to be careful. Being targeted by concubine Pang won't do you any good. The Empress Dowager loves her so much. No matter what she does, the Empress Dowager will let her. Shen Yueji calmly took a sip of tea. If the Empress Dowager didn't care about her, she would have stood out to refute the rumor the moment the news was released. In the end, she was still as calm as Mount Tai. Until now, there hasn't been any movement from Xi'an Palace. She smiled. It seems that the Empress Dowager wants to see how I deal with the rumors in the harem. Miss Shen, Wu Jiaoyi looked at her worriedly. Is Miss Shen all right? Wu Jiaoyi, don't worry. My lady is fine. This Pang Yuan has done countless things to my young miss in secret. In the end, she reaped what she sowed. Now, it's merely some rumors that aren't worth mentioning. What's there to take to heart? That's true. Wu Jiaoyi was still worried. But how can a woman's reputation be ruined like this? Miss Shen, Wu Jiaoyi, you have to remember that people live for themselves. As for their reputation, if you don't care about it, why should you care about others? Those who don't like you, no matter how well you live and how good your reputation is, they won't like you. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow, you read literature. Chapter 885. Those who truly treat you well, no matter how bad your reputation is, or how evil you are, will still be willing to be close to you. Wu Jiaoyi raised her head and looked at her. Are you talking about me, Miss Shen? Shen Yueji smiled. If that's what Wu Jiaoyi thinks, then so be it. Miss Shen is right. I value other people's opinions of me too much. That's why, later on, after listening to her words, she executed that woman. Not only did the people in the harem change their opinion of her, but even she became much more indifferent, and her state of mind became much more relaxed. The person who always schemed against her was finally dead. In this way, she did not need to be on guard against her every day. Shen Yueji's state of mind was something she should learn from. Miss Shen, what do you plan to do? Shen Yueji was about to speak. Concubine Mei has arrived, Shangwan Mei. Hearing the report from outside, Wu Jiaoyi could no longer sit still. She stood up abruptly because she had dealt with that woman without permission. She knew that Shangwan Mei would not forget her so quickly and would definitely think of ways to deal with her, but, suddenly, she calmed down. She did not know if it was because of Shen Yueji's gaze. She was just an insignificant Jiaoyi. As for Shen Yueji, she was still sitting there unscathed. Now that Shangwan Mei has set her sights on me, she won't do anything to you. That woman is just a pawn she's using. If I hadn't appeared in the North Underworld's harem, perhaps she would be willing to play this game of cat and mouse with you. But now that I'm here, it's obvious that she won't set her sights on you. Miss Shen, Concubine Mei is not someone to be trifled with. You must be careful. Shangwan Mei was the type of person who hid a dagger behind a smile. Now, Wu Jiaoyi was even more worried. Shen Yueji had offended the two most difficult people to offend in the palace. If they joined hands to deal with Shen Yueji, what would she do? Even if she had the emperor's protection, but in the imperial family, the emperor's favor was just a flash in the pan. What she was worried about was that the emperor doted on her now, but it didn't mean that he would protect her in the future. In addition, Grand Tutor Pang and Shangwan Mei's fathers were all useful people in the imperial court. They were loyal to the Northern Dark Kingdom and had made countless contributions. Her worries were not without reason. Regarding Shen Yueji's identity, she only began to inquire about it after Shen Yueji helped her. She knew that she was an imperial concubine of Feng Country and the beloved daughter of Feng Country's first-rank general, Shen He. However, this was the Northern Underworld, not her Feng Country. Just as she was worrying, Shangwan Mei also came in. Perhaps because she did not see her, Shangwan Mei stared at her for a while and barely remembered who she was. I heard from the people in the palace that in order to protect Wu Jiaoyi, Miss Shen did not hesitate to instigate her to hurt someone important to me. Shen Yueji smiled, but she did not get up. I didn't know it was someone important to Concubine Mei. I hope Concubine Mei won't blame me. What are you saying, Miss Shen? This consort knows that Miss Shen isn't an unreasonable person. Since you've injured her, that means that woman deserves to die. Since she made Miss Shen unhappy, it's fine to teach her a lesson. If you want to talk about super cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 886. Those who truly treat you well, no matter how bad your reputation is, or how evil you are, will still be willing to be close to you. Wu Jiaoyi raised her head and looked at her. Are you talking about me, Miss Shin? Shin Yueji smiled. If Wu Jiaoyi thinks so, then so be it. Miss Shen is right. I value other people's opinion of me too much. That's why, later on, after listening to her words, she executed that woman. Not only did the people in the harem change their opinion of her, but even she became much more relaxed. The person who always schemed against her was finally dead. In this way, she did not need to be on guard against her every day. Shin Yueji's state of mind was something she should learn from. Miss Shin, what do you plan to do? Shin Yueji was about to speak. Concubine Mei has arrived, Shangguan Mei. Hearing the report from outside, Wu Jiaoyi could no longer sit still. She stood up abruptly because she had dealt with that woman without permission. She knew that Shangguan Mei would not forget her so quickly and would definitely think of ways to deal with her, but, suddenly, she calmed down. She did not know if it was because of Shin Yueji's gaze. She was just an insignificant Jiaoyi. As for Shin Yueji, she was still sitting there unscathed. Now that Shangguan Mei has set her sights on me, she won't do anything to you. That woman is just a pawn she's using. If I hadn't appeared in the North Underworld's harem, perhaps she would be willing to play this game of cat and mouse with you. But now that I'm here, it's obvious that she won't set her sights on you. Miss Shen, Concubine Mei is not someone to be trifled with. You must be careful. Shangguan Mei was the type of person who hid a dagger behind a smile. Now, Wu Jiaoyi was even more worried. Shin Yueji had offended the two most difficult people to offend in the palace. If they joined hands to deal with Shin Yueji, what would she do? Even if she had the emperor's protection, but in the imperial family, the emperor's favor was just a flash in the pan. What she was worried about was that the emperor doted on her now, but it didn't mean that he would protect her in the future. In addition, Grand Tutor Pang and Shangguan Mei's fathers were all useful people in the imperial court. They were loyal to the Northern Dark Kingdom and had made countless contributions. Her worries were not without reason. Regarding Shin Yueji's identity, she only began to inquire about it after Shin Yueji helped her. She knew that she was an imperial concubine of Feng Country and the beloved daughter of Feng Country's first-rank general, Shin He. However, this was the Northern Underworld, not her Feng Country. Just as she was worrying, Shangguan Mei also came in. Perhaps because she did not see her, Shangguan Mei stared at her for a while and barely remembered who she was. I heard from the people in the palace that in order to protect Wu Jiaoyi, Miss Shen did not hesitate to instigate her to hurt someone important to me. Shin Yueji smiled, but she did not get up. I didn't know it was someone important to Concubine Mei. I hope Concubine Mei won't blame me. What are you saying, Miss Shin? This consort knows that Miss Shin isn't an unreasonable person. Since you've injured her, that means that woman deserves to die. Since she made Miss Shin unhappy, it's fine to teach her a lesson. If you want to talk about super cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 887. Shangguan Mei smiled and comforted her. I believe that Miss Shen is not such a person. Shuangshi sneered, Concubine Mei, you really think highly of my Mississippi. Coincidentally, my miss is such a person. Shin Yueji. Shangguan Mei, you're, Wu Jiaoyi. Shin Yueji covered her mouth and coughed awkwardly. Concubine Mei, please don't take it to heart. My maid is straightforward and she speaks the truth. Shangguan Mei could no longer keep the smile on her face. Miss Shin, do you really doubt me? Concubine Mei is smarter than Imperial Concubine Pang and knows how to win people's hearts. Whether I doubt you or not, it's just an answer. Whether it's a lie or the truth, I don't want to say. I have no enmity with Concubine Mei. It's good to have one more friend in the harem, but as the saying goes, the ones who betray you are the friends around you. So, it's not good to have more friends. I happen to be someone who doesn't like to make friends. Miss Shen, I am sincere when I say that I like you. You are indeed different from the other women in the harem. Not only the emperor, but I believe that if I was a man, I would like you too. I can't accept concubine Mei's love. Yuka Shin Yueji, my concubine Mei treats you out of kindness. How can you be so ungrateful? Yuer stood up angrily. Shangguan Mei glared at her. Yuer, don't be rude to Miss Shin. Concubine Mei. Since Miss Shin does not welcome me, I will take my leave first. There might be some misunderstanding between me and Miss Shin. Miss Shen is a smart person. Just as you said, you are very open-minded about some things. What kind of place is the harem? It's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. In this way, we can help each other in the future, right? Goodbye. Imperial concubine Mei is smarter than Imperial concubine Pang in that you maintain a friendly relationship with both sides. On one side, you plot against Imperial concubine Pang and instigate the relationship between her and this concubine, adding oil to the fire and giving advice. On the other side, you encourage me to cooperate with you to deal with Pang Yuan. Between the two of you, Imperial concubine Mei will not help either of you. She will watch the tigers fight from the other side. No matter which of us will suffer, the one who will gain the upper hand will be you. Seeing Shangguan Mei's stiff back, Shin Yueji smiled slightly. If we were to talk about who to deal with, I would rather get rid of you first. Compared to Pang Yuan, concubine Mei is much more dangerous. Pang Yuan relied on her father to commit all sorts of crimes. She was spoiled and arrogant, vicious and merciless. But you, concubine Mei, are different. You do not rely on your family, but yourself. Whether it is temperament or talent, not to mention one Pang Yuan, even if there were 10 of her, they would not be comparable to one Shangguan Mei. The shock in her heart was far greater than the expression on her face. Shangguan Mei's straight and stiff back did not come back to her senses for a long time. Even her footsteps, which were about to leave, were completely frozen, as if they were rooted to the ground. For a long time. She wanted to speak, but did not know how to defend herself. Because the things that she had plotted in her heart were so mercilessly exposed by Shin Yueji. Including her schemes and the fact that she deliberately framed Pang Yuan. Even Pang Yuan could not figure it out, but to Shin Yueji, it was just a look, a subtle movement. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, getting into trouble. Chat about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 888. Perhaps, she didn't even need to observe. When she heard about the rumor, she already suspected her. All this time, she couldn't see through this woman. The only thing she could see through was her temperament. She was so calm like the wind and had everything in her hands. She had never seen the slightest bit of panic on her face. It was only at this moment that Shangguan Mei realized that her self-righteous schemes and self-righteous instigation were like clowns in her eyes. In her eyes, she had long seen through everything clearly and thoroughly. Yuer saw her concubine lose her composure. This was the first time she saw her concubine lose her composure since she entered the palace and served her concubine for so many years. It's better to have a friend than an enemy. But in my eyes, I'd rather have an enemy. Friends will only hurt me, and I'll feel sad. If it's an enemy, I'll only be happy when the enemy dies. I won't have so many worries. People with different beliefs can't make plans together. Perhaps concubine Mei and I are only suited to be friends. Shin Yueji, don't you think you're being a little too arrogant? Shangguan Mei turned around and looked at her. There was still a faint smile on her lips, but at this moment, there was a layer of danger in that smile. No matter how high your status in the Feng Nation is, you should know what kind of place it is now that you're in the northern underworld. Imperial concubine Pang's paternal family's backer is the Grand Tutor of the nation. He has a high position and all the officials in the imperial court listen to him. My father is a first-grade prime minister in the imperial court. He's also highly regarded by the officials and the people of the capital. No matter which one of us wants to deal with you, it would be as easy as flipping our hands. You should know how long the emperor's favor will last. Perhaps the emperor treats you differently, but if it's you or the country, who do you think the emperor will choose? Who do you think I'll choose? The man's deep and dignified voice came from outside the palace. Shang Wanmei looked up when she heard the voice. What she saw was a man dressed in a black robe, his tall and straight figure slowly walking towards her. The man's handsome facial features were natural and beautiful. Every part of his face was so exquisite that there was not the slightest flaw. Such a perfect man had such a high status. He was the ruler of the northern underworld. Which woman in the imperial harem didn't like? This was their man. In the future, she would have to rely on men, including herself, Shang Wanmei. Shang Wanmei quickly knelt down in front of him. Your Majesty. As for Mo Wushang, he didn't even look at her. He walked past her and stood in front of Shen Yueji. He grabbed her hand and hugged her. Why are there so many people here? The emperor frowned. It seemed that other women had come to Xingyang Palace, which made him unhappy. Shen Yueji was amused. She smoothed his furrowed brows. One is a friend who came to remind me, and the other is a future enemy who came to incite me. After listening to her quietly, the man looked at Shang Wanmei coldly. Shang Wanmei knelt on the ground. Her face was pale. Your Majesty, I feel like old friends with Miss Shin. It was out of kindness. Imperial concubine Pang was blamed by the Empress Dowager for giving the fox fur sable to the Empress Dowager. Imperial concubine Pang blamed Miss Shin for it. If you want to talk about super cute favorite concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find friends. Chapter 889. Now, there are rumors about Miss Shen in the harem. Miss Shen is going to be the Empress of the Northern Underworld in the future. If your reputation is ruined because of this, I'm afraid it won't be good for Miss Shen. I didn't expect that Miss Shen would misunderstand me and think that I and Imperial Consort Pang have joined hands to frame her, so I was angry and said those words. I hope Your Majesty can forgive me, a moment of anger. Mo Wushang narrowed his eyes slightly, and his gaze fell on her like a dagger. Just this gaze alone made Shang Wanmei not dare to look at him directly. Although she was a second-ranked Mei Fei in the inner palace, had a powerful family background, and was much better at scheming than Pang Yuan, the total number of times she had seen the emperor, including since she entered the palace, was no more than 3 times. The emperor's excellence made her fall in love with him at first sight, but, what if I kill you in a moment of anger? The emperor. The man's cold and heartless words scared Shang Wanmei so much that her face turned pale. She fell to the ground powerlessly and looked at him in disbelief. No matter what, she was still a second-rank Mei concubine, and her father was a first-rank prime minister in the court. She actually wanted to kill her for Shen Yueji. She knew that the emperor was not joking with her. His cold eyes were like countless sharp knives, piercing into her body and riddling her with holes. Your Majesty, this servant does not know what mistake her ladyship has committed. Her ladyship had good intentions and wanted to remind Miss Chin to guard against Consort Pang. Who would have thought that Miss Chin not only did not accept her ladyship's good intentions, she even encouraged her maids to speak ill of her. Your Majesty, you have to uphold justice for this servant's ladyship. Yu hurriedly knelt on the ground and cried as she explained. So what if I speak ill of you? That fox fur sable was originally deliberately given to Pang Yuan by your Nyang. If she had known earlier, she would have presented it to the Empress Dowager. Even if the Empress Dowager was angry, it was also within your Nyang's calculations. She wanted to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. I'm afraid that the one who encouraged Pang Yuan to put this dirty hat on my Miss Head was also your Nyang. What kind of good intentions? I see that all of you have good intentions, but you can't wait to get rid of my young miss. My young miss has never offended you, right? Don't make yourself sound so noble. You only know how to play those shameless tricks behind the scenes. Shuangxi angrily pointed at them and scolded them. She no longer cared about Imo Wushang's presence. Anyway, she wasn't afraid. Since the son-in-law liked her family's young miss so much, she, as a maidservant, would also benefit from it. Lu Yu. Emperor. It's just a small matter of bickering. If you interfere again, it will become a big matter. Didn't I say that I will handle this matter myself? You don't have to interfere. You just need to take care of your own affairs in the court. She playfully scratched the man's palm. Mo Wushang glanced sideways at her. His gaze softened and he changed the words that were on the tip of his tongue, drag her away. 50 strokes. Emperor. Your Majesty, please spare me. Your Majesty. This servant's concubine can't take such a heavy beating. This will take her ladyship's life. Emperor, this servant is willing to take the punishment in place of the imperial concubine. Emperor, please hit this servant. Since Yu is so loyal to his master, then both master and servant shall receive 50 strokes each. Lu Yu lightly glanced at them and continued. The emperor didn't reply. There wasn't a trace of displeasure on his face. He seemed to be quite satisfied with Lu Yu's reply at this time. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature. Chapter 890. This time, it wasn't just Shangwan Mei, even Yu's face turned ashen. Begging for mercy was useless. They could see that the more they begged, the more the emperor would lose his patience and punish them even harder. They watched as the master and servant were dragged away to be punished. Wu Jiaoyi, who was standing at the side, covered her mouth in shock. Her eyes widened. She used to think that the emperor only liked and pampered Xin Yueji. But now, just because of a few words from Shangwan Mei, the emperor disregarded the prime minister and wanted to kill Shangwan Mei. If it wasn't for Xin Yueji stopping her, Shangwan Mei would have become a cold corpse by now. The emperor's love for Xin Yueji was more than just love and affection. This was clearly love, love to the bone. For Xin Yueji, he really couldn't care less about Shangwan Mei. This reminded her of what Shangwan Mei had just said. Between Zhang Shan and Xin Yueji, who would the emperor choose? She didn't hesitate anymore. The emperor heard it. Although he didn't answer, he used his actions to prove to Shangwan Mei that he chose Xin Yueji. Because behind Shangwan Mei was half of the Dark North Kingdom. But the emperor still punished her for Xin Yueji. Because of shock and fear, Wu Jiaoyi forgot to kneel. She didn't know why she was afraid. No wonder Xin Yueji didn't panic. She knew that the emperor would protect her. Just the emperor's love for her was enough to protect her till the end. What was there to be afraid of? Why are you back so early today? Nothing important, so I came back to see you. Did you eat? I just took a bath. Why would I eat? Xin Yueji was amused. Bath? Noticing this word, the man narrowed his eyes and sized her up. Very quickly, Xin Yueji noticed the meaning of his gaze, and her little face immediately turned red. This guy, how could he not control himself? This morning, Wu Jiaoyi is here. Wu Jiaoyi didn't need the emperor's dangerous gaze to look at her. She quickly bowed and said, I just remembered that I have something to do, so I'll go back first. I'll take my leave. Initially, she had intended to use the word concubine, but she seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly changed it. There was one thing about her. She was the same as the women in the imperial harem. Who wouldn't want the emperor's favor? However, it was not exactly the same. The emperor had always been a high and mighty person. She would only take the initiative if he took a liking to her. Otherwise, she did not want to be like the 3,000 beauties in the imperial harem. She did not want to be like them, fighting for it until their heads bled and their bodies were covered in injuries. It was not because it was not worth it, but the emperor was not like an ordinary man. He could not be faithful to one woman to the end. She used to think like this, but now, after seeing Shin Yueji, especially seeing how much the emperor doted on her, she knew that she no longer had a chance. Therefore, she would rather be friends with Shin Yueji than become enemies with her for the sake of fighting for the throne. After Wu Jiaoyi left, Shuangxi playfully stuck out her tongue. Son-in-law, this servant will also take her leave. It was rare for the man to be willing to look at this little girl who had helped him a lot in Feng country. He nodded. In the blink of an eye, the lively Xingyang palace suddenly became empty. When she met the man's dark eyes again, Shin Yueji subconsciously took a step back. Mo Wushang, you can't control yourself. It's still daytime. Forget about it at night, but don't even think about it during the day. If you want to talk about super cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 891. The man grabbed her and pulled her into his arms. He kissed her lips and suddenly smiled. What are you thinking about? When did I say I wanted to? Or you? Shin Yueji was speechless. The next moment, she reached out and covered the man's mouth. Don't say it. I don't want to. The rumor in the harem was that Shin Yueji had been reprimanded by the Empress Dowager in order to please the Empress Dowager. They didn't dare to spread the rumor in front of Shin Yueji. But at least in places where Shin Yueji wasn't involved, the curious ones and the concubines who hated Shin Yueji were undoubtedly fanning the flames and spreading the rumor. However, the incident with Shangguan Mei in Xingyang Palace had caused an uproar in the harem. Although the status of the current imperial concubine Mei could not be compared to Pang Yuan, her father was still a first-rank prime minister in the imperial court. He had a high status and power in the imperial court. Usually, besides imperial tutor Pang, the second person the emperor valued was him. They didn't expect, no one dared to believe it, especially when they found out that the emperor originally wanted to kill Shangguan Mei to avenge Shin Yueji. They were so shocked that they could not close their jaws. The emperor actually loved this woman from Feng country to this extent. He didn't even care about the prime minister. The North Underworld was in need of manpower right now. The emperor's actions were undoubtedly a slap to the prime minister's face in public. Everyone was envious and jealous of this woman from Feng country. They hadn't seen her before and had only heard rumors about her. Every single woman hated her. They had been in the palace for so long and they had all learned the best etiquette, manners, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting skills. They had waited for the emperor for so many years in the harem, but the emperor didn't look up to them. But this Shin Yueji, they still didn't know what was so special about her that made the emperor fall head over heels for her. Not only the prime minister, but imperial concubine Pang also didn't dare to do anything to Shin Yueji. Even imperial concubine Pang didn't dare to touch this woman. When the Empress Dowager of Ci and Palace heard this, she was stunned for a moment. Soon, she sighed silently. I was still thinking about whether or not I should help Ji. After all, these rumors are not good for her reputation. Wan-er's actions are too ruthless. In the end, she was still hesitating. Although she wanted to know how Shin Yueji would handle the matter alone, the emperor was unwilling. He did not even give Shin Yueji a chance to do anything. With Shang Wanmei, everything was settled. Most of the women in the harem liked to focus on the emperor. After all, he was the man they had spent their entire lives following. But, Xian shook his head and sighed. Her son seemed to have deep feelings for Shin Yueji. For the sake of this woman, he could not even care about his most valued minister. 50 strokes of the paddle. Even a thick-skinned man would lose half his life. If it were to be done to a weak woman like Shang Wanmei, wouldn't it be the same as taking her life? Empress Dowager. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble. Talk about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 892. Nanny Zhu, who was standing at the side, also had a worried look on her face. In any case, the emperor's actions this time were too much. It was not wrong for him to favor Shin Yueji. No one in the palace stopped him from favoring any concubine or woman. After all, he was the emperor. It was reasonable for an emperor to have a favorite concubine. However, he should not have treated concubine Mei like this when she had not done anything wrong. 50 strokes of the paddle. An ordinary concubine would be talked about, let alone the Prime Minister's daughter. This was, I'm afraid the Prime Minister has heard the news now. Empress Dowager, you see, Xian was amused and angry. He was angry that he did not care about the ministers and his reputation. As the emperor of the North Underworld, he did not set an example and treated his own concubine like this. How could he abandon the prime minister? The problem was that Shang Wanmei did not do anything but was flogged 50 times. This was different from punishing her for something she had done wrong. What can I do now that she has been flogged? Alas, Shang-er is good at everything except this. He is like his father. How can he be a good emperor of the North Underworld if he does not care about anything? I don't think that Shin Yueji is easy to deal with. Even if Shang Wanmei is cunning, she may not be a match for Shin Yueji. He is afraid that his woman will be wronged, so he will help her settle it first. Seeing him so deeply in love, Xian felt gratified, but also worried about him. He liked Shin Yueji so much. She did not know how much Shin Yueji liked him. Even if it was only half, she could rest assured. Shang-er was the son she had given birth to after 10 months of pregnancy. He was a piece of flesh that fell from her belly and the fruit of her love with the man she loved. She naturally wanted him to be well. Order someone to go to the charming palace and send more treasures and tonics to Mei Fei. Also, send Aigi's imperial physician to diagnose Mei Fei as well. Yes. Empress Dowager, the Prime Minister wants to see you. At this time, a young eunuch came in from outside the hall and reported. Xian paused as if he had expected it. He did not look too surprised. However, a strange look flashed across his eyes, making it hard for others to notice. He nodded. Let him in. The person who came in was a middle-aged man. He was thin and had a fair complexion. Although he was already middle-aged, his demeanor and appearance were still that of a young man. He was not like other middle-aged men. When they reached middle age, their bodies would become fat. He still looked the same as when he was young, an elegant and thin young man, extraordinarily handsome. When Shang Wanhe came in, his eyes fell on her. He looked at her and bowed respectfully. Your humble servant, you and I have known each other for many years. There's no need to kneel. Without waiting for him to kneel, Xian waved his hand. Nanny Zhu, give the Prime Minister a seat. Yes, Empress Dowager. Nanny Zhu respectfully offered her seat to Shang Wanhe. Shang Wanhe nodded and sat down. Lord Shangwan, regarding the matter of your beloved daughter, I have only just found out about it. His Majesty's actions this time are indeed too unbecoming of a ruler. I will speak to His Majesty about this. At that time, I will ask His Majesty to give Lord Shangwan an explanation. Mei is obedient and sensible. She does not like to fight. After entering the palace, she has been scrupulously abiding by her duties. Your humble servant thinks that she is much better than concubine Pang, who is spoiled and arrogant. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent gets into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 893. The Empress Dowager nodded. Yes. I have seen Mei Er's words and actions in the palace. To be honest, she is the best candidate to be the Empress. I have considered her before. But I am only the Empress Dowager of a country, not the Emperor. I can't control the Emperor's mind. Lord Shangwan, you know that my son is like his father. No matter what, as long as it is his own decision, no one can change his mind. I've also seen the girl that your Majesty brought from Feng country. She's quite pretty and has a good heart. I haven't spent much time with her, so I don't know her very well. But from the looks of it, she's all right. If she's not bad, why would she allow your Majesty to beat Mei Er? Empress Dowager, to be frank, these 50 strokes are not even allowed on a man, let alone a weak girl like Mei Er. Empress Dowager, when I went to Charming Palace to visit her, she was lying on the bed with a pale face. It was as if she would die at any time. Xian couldn't refute the man's words. Prime Minister, I know you are very protective of your daughter. I have said that I will give you an explanation, Xian owed the man in front of him. He couldn't speak in an overbearing tone because he owed him and knew that he was angry. The man was obviously angry. Xian turned his head. Granny Zhu, you can leave now. Empress Dowager. Granny Zhu looked at her worriedly. Xian waved his hand. It's okay. You can leave. I am fine. Yes, Empress Dowager. Nanny Zhu left worriedly. When she passed by Shangwan He, Nanny Zhu paused and looked at him. Lord Shangwan, I have to remind you that so many years have passed. What's done cannot be undone. Many things can't go back to the past. Many people have changed. Now, the Prime Minister has married someone else, and some people are thinking about it. She didn't finish her words. She just sighed and left. Things have already happened. The only thing I can do now is to make amends. Shangwan He, I've already told you that the Emperor's temperament is the same as the late Emperor's. I can't control him even if I want to. Since he cares so much about Ji Er, you can't push the blame onto her. Although I haven't known this girl for a long time, I know that she abhors evil. As long as Mei Er doesn't do anything to her, she won't stand by and watch her get beaten. Empress Dowager is still the same as when she was young, always so protective. No matter what mistake the person you want to protect has made, you will always find so many reasons and methods to explain and defend them. Shangwan He, so many years have passed, don't you understand? There is no longer any possibility between you and me. Xian's gaze finally fell on him. From the moment you married someone else, there was no possibility between us. Shangwan He suddenly raised his head and fixed his eyes on her. So many years had passed, but for him, every day and every moment was like a kind of torture. She was not old, and neither was he. He tried his best to maintain a young appearance, but no one knew what he was expecting in his heart. At that time, it was he who met her first, and the man she loved was him. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find confidence. Chapter 894. The Empress Dowager nodded. Yes. I have seen Mei Er's words and actions in the palace. To be honest, she is the best candidate to be the Empress. I have considered her before. But I am only the Empress Dowager of a country, not the Emperor. I can't control the Emperor's mind. Lord Shengguan, you know that my son is like his father. No matter what, as long as it is his own decision, no one can change his mind. I've also seen the girl that your Majesty brought from Feng country. She's quite pretty and has a good heart. I haven't spent much time with her, so I don't know her very well. But from the looks of it, she's all right. If she's not bad, why would she allow your Majesty to beat Mei Er? Empress Dowager, to be frank, these 50 strokes are not even allowed on a man, let alone a weak girl like Mei Er. Empress Dowager, when I went to Charming Palace to visit her, she was lying on the bed with a pale face. It was as if she would die at any time. Xian couldn't refute the man's words. Prime Minister, I know you are very protective of your daughter. I have said that I will give you an explanation, Xian owed the man in front of him. He couldn't speak in an overbearing tone because he owed him and knew that he was angry. The man was obviously angry. Xian turned his head. Granny Zhu, you can leave now. Empress Dowager. Granny Zhu looked at her worriedly. Xian waved his hand. It's okay. You can leave. I am fine. Yes, Empress Dowager. Nanny Zhu left worriedly. When she passed by Shengguan Nanny Zhu paused and looked at him. Lord Shengguan, I have to remind you that so many years have passed. What's done cannot be undone. Many things can't go back to the past. Many people have changed. Now, the Prime Minister has married someone else, and some people are thinking about it. She didn't finish her words. She just sighed and left. Things have already happened. The only thing I can do now is to make amends. Shengguan I've already told you that the Emperor's temperament is the same as the late Emperor's. I can't control him even if I want to. Since he cares so much about Ji Er, you can't push the blame onto her. Although I haven't known this girl for a long time, I know that she abhors evil. As long as Mei Er doesn't do anything to her, she won't stand by and watch her get beaten. Empress Dowager is still the same as when she was young, always so protective. No matter what mistake the person you want to protect has made, you will always find so many reasons and methods to explain and defend them. Shengguan so many years have passed, don't you understand? There is no longer any possibility between you and me. Xian's gaze finally fell on him. From the moment you married someone else, there was no possibility between us. Shengguan suddenly raised his head and fixed his eyes on her. So many years had passed, but for him, every day and every moment was like a kind of torture. She was not old, and neither was he. He tried his best to maintain a young appearance, but no one knew what he was expecting in his heart. At that time, it was he who met her first, and the man she loved was him. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find confidence. Chapter 896. Xian stared at him fiercely. You have long felt that I was an eyesore and that I didn't deserve to exist in this world, so you wanted to kill me. When I was with him, you were not reconciled. You couldn't stand the fact that the woman who loved you and only you fell in love with another man in the blink of an eye. Your self-esteem was playing tricks on you, so you thought of me. I often think that if I had married an ordinary man from an ordinary family, and his status and appearance were not as good as yours, I'm afraid that you would have ignored me a long time ago. You wouldn't even have looked at me with disdain. However, the man I married is the Emperor. Not only that, he dotes on me more than you do, loves me, and protects me. In this aspect, even you can't compare. So, you are not reconciled, are you? Not to mention him, even she herself did not expect that a lowly person like her would catch the eye of the emperor of a country. She was heartbroken and did not want to accept another man, but that man was so gentle to her. For her, he would die for her, and even become the enemy of the world for her. In the past, she was immersed in Shang Wanhe's gentleness and could not extricate herself. She thought that he was the one for her. But, until she experienced his betrayal, she realized that the so-called true love and gentleness were nothing more than this. Bai Mingyu's appearance made her realize what was the feeling of being loved and protected in the palm of someone's hand. Her cold heart had finally met him, and it began to slowly warm up. She had feelings for him again. So what? Shang is my child. You said it, you said you were pregnant with my child, shut up. Xian roared. Shang Wanhe pursed his lips and really did not speak anymore. The first time she slept with him was after he became successful. He used flowery words to deceive her, but she believed him. She really thought that everything he did was for her. It wasn't until he touched her that he felt sick of her and allowed that woman to kill her. She had told him that she was pregnant with his child. Shang Wanhe. Xian's lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. He suddenly laughed. In your heart, have you always thought that Shang is your son? And I've always wanted to confirm this with you. Ever since you got together with Bai Mingyu, you didn't want to see me. He's the emperor, and I'm just a subject, so naturally I can't do anything to him. Xian was amused. I don't want to see you because I've fallen in love with Bai Mingyu. Don't you know that this man is good at everything except that he's too narrow-minded? You can't bear to see me having anything to do with another man, especially a man I used to like. Since you want to know whose child Shang is, then I'll tell you. Shang is the child of Bai Mingyu and I. Our only child. No, it's impossible. Shang Wanhe took a few steps back in disbelief and looked at her in shock. No, it's impossible, he kept shaking his head. How is this possible? Xian, you're lying to me. You're lying to me, aren't you? Speaking of which, you just refuse to forgive me. You hate me. Because you hate me, so you don't want to admit it to me. You don't want to admit that Shang is our child. I know you must still be angry in your heart. You're angry that I treated you like that and betrayed you, so you. To chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, chat about life and find a confidant. Chapter 897. Shang Wanhe, you're still as naive as before. You're so full of yourself, thinking that everything is under your control, including me. But have you forgotten that when a woman's heart is broken by you and her heart is dead, what will she do when she goes crazy? Shang is the child of me and Bai Mingyu. Why would I lie to you? Because there's no need to lie to you now. Do you know? As for why I lied to you back then, it was because I wanted to use you. I wanted you to remember that the future emperor is your son. I wanted you to be loyal to him and put him first in everything you do. After you passed away, we were alone and had no one to rely on. If I didn't give you this understanding, I believe that with your ambition, you would definitely lead troops to revolt. But when you had this understanding and thought that Shang was the child of you and me, he was your child no matter what. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. You would definitely serve him loyally. You would secretly help him get rid of all the officials who were not loyal to him. You don't know how much trouble you saved us. Speaking of this, Xian suddenly laughed. That child died long ago. It was when you coldly watched that bitch kill me that I fell off the cliff. I survived, but the child was gone. Shengwan He, why do you still want a child? Do you want me to bear a child for you? Let me tell you, you're not worthy. Originally, if he and she were just a subject and a master, discussing the matter of Shengwan Mei, she would be willing to give him an explanation. But when he entered the palace, his purpose was not for Shengwan Mei, but to rekindle their old relationship. Xian didn't know how disgusted he was. Shengwan He, speaking of which, you don't know how much that person in your family hates me, right? All this time, she wanted me to die. All this time, she has always been superior to me. She felt that I was not as good as she was, that I was not as good as she was. Even my man left me because of her. But now, I am the empress of a country. I am married to the emperor. My son is the emperor of the North Underworld. He controls everything in the North Underworld. Even her life and death are in my hands. Do you know that she is not reconciled to this? Do you know how unwilling she is? Right now, she clearly hates me to death, but she doesn't dare to offend me. She doesn't even dare to speak to me with that arrogant face of hers. Even when she sees me, she has to respectfully kneel on the ground, pay her respects to me, and respectfully call me Empress Dowager. If she were to find out that even the man she once snatched away is now begging for forgiveness and wants to rekindle our old relationship, do you think she would want to die? Xian, you should know that she has never existed in my heart. From the moment I married her, I only loved you. From the moment I married her, all I had for her was. Yes, she is not in your heart. What you saw was her backing, her beauty, and everything she could give you. So, you betrayed me and chose her. Shengwan He, you are not a gentleman. Why do you explain yourself so affectionately? You betrayed me and let a weak woman like me suffer the coldness of others. I was unmarried and pregnant. Even the child in my belly died because of your vicious father. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, we chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 898. The Emperor of the Dark North Kingdom had passed the throne to his own son. He only needed an opportunity to convince Brimming Shang and tell him that he was his biological father. This way, the Dark North Kingdom's kingdom would be changed to the Shengwan families, and become his. Even though he was ambitious, he also knew that Brimming Shang was his own flesh and blood. At his age, if it were someone else trying to rule the country and become the emperor, he would definitely fight to the death to take the throne and become the emperor himself. But the emperor was Brimming Shang, his biological son, so there was no need to fight for it. Not only would he not fight for it, he would also do his best to protect the mother and son. Now, hearing Xian's heartless words, Shengwan He looked at her bitterly and said, Xian, you are still the same as before, always unwilling to admit defeat. Things have come to this point, even if you admit that Shang is my son, what can you do? I won't do anything to you and your mother. On the contrary, I'll love you and your mother even more. I know you've always liked Tuiru. As long as you admit that Shang is my son, I'll divorce her when I get back. From now on, I'll protect you and your mother. I won't let you and your mother be bullied or wronged. What do you say? Guards, Xian. Seeing that there was really a guard coming in, Shengwan He's expression suddenly changed. He did not dare to lose his composure, and hurriedly came down from his high seat, respectfully standing below, looking at Xian. The emperor has punished concubine Mei with a rod, and Ai Jia has already ordered the best doctor to diagnose her. I have also sent people to send a lot of tonics and precious jewelry, and I have already discussed it with the Prime Minister. Since it's like this, Ai Jia is tired, and my beloved minister, please return. In front of everyone, what could Shengwan say? He could only unwillingly bow and respectfully say, "Yes, Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager, please take care of yourself." After that, he left. Before leaving, he looked back at her. The woman was very decisive, and did not even bother to look at him. After he left, Nanny Zhu came in, and when she came in, she even met him face to face. From her angle, she could clearly see the palm mark on half of Shengwan He's handsome face. Nanny Zhu was surprised. Hadn't the Empress Dowager already had no feelings for him? Why did he hit her so angrily? One could imagine how furious the Empress Dowager was just by looking at the unerasable handprint on her face. Her eyes did not stay on Shengwan He for long. Worried about Xian, she quickly walked into the inner hall. Xian still maintained his previous posture, standing there, his body trembling. When Nanny Zhu saw her, her heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe. She went forward and held her in her arms. Just like before, Nanny Zhu was like an elder sister, comforting the weak and helpless Nanny Zhu. "Empress Dowager, if you want to cry, just cry. You'll be fine after you let it out. And me, I'll always be here." Why did I fall in love with such a sanctimonious hypocrite? For him, I was willing to give up everything. For him, I even gave up my chastity. He was just deceiving me with a few words, but I still believed him. Granny Zhu, the only thing I regret now is that I didn't give my chastity to you. For my sake, he has always been chaste. I don't know how much he has sacrificed, but she had always been obsessed with this man, and she didn't know how many times she had hurt his heart. Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Prince Regent, Messing with Claw Book House, for free. Chapter 899. Why do evil people have such long lives? Why do they have to disgust me? Can't we just live our own lives? Granny Zhu, after so many years, I still don't know how to face him. Although I hate him, I don't have him in my heart, but I don't dare to face him. If Yu is still alive, he can always stand in front of me and help me deal with everything. He can make him speechless, he can make him feel so ashamed that he can't vent his anger. You can make him seethe with anger. Shengwan he could only hate in her heart, but she couldn't do anything on the surface. But her Yu was already dead, and the only ones alive were Shengwan he and that disgusting woman. Empress Dowager, now that the emperor is an adult, he can face everything well. You don't have to give Shengwan he that impression for the emperor. This servant knows that in your heart, you must hate him to the core. Hate. She didn't just hate him, she even wanted to kill him. Especially Shengwan Mei. Shengwan Mei's temperament and appearance were very similar to her mother's, and she was her enemy. Logically speaking, such an obedient and cultured woman should be the best candidate for the North Sea Empress. But she hated her, hated everything about the Shengwan family. Even when she came to greet her every day, she was rejected at the door. Because she hated her, she didn't want to see her. She was afraid that if she saw her, especially the face that looked similar to her mother's, she would feel disgusted and want to kill her. She waved her hand. Forget it. If I really hate him, I don't know how many years I will hate him. Although I hate him, I have seen his loyalty to Shang'er all these years. The reason I am willing to tolerate him is because he has sacrificed a lot for Shang'er and the Dark North Kingdom. Just Pangshan alone is far from enough. She didn't want to do anything to him now, but the North Sea Empire needed people. If she touched him now, what would the officials and people of the North Sea Empire think? She wasn't young anymore. She could do whatever she wanted and do whatever she wanted. Every move she made, every step she took, she had to think about Dark North and her son. Nanny Zhu didn't know how many times she had seen her. The grievances and hatred in her heart would always subside in a short period of time, and then she would swallow them down. She knew the Empress Dowager's grievances and knew what she had done for Dark North all these years. For the sake of the country, for the sake of the late emperor, he could lower his hatred and anger to such a low level that it was not even worth mentioning. Empress Dowager, since Shengguan he is not here for concubine Mei, then this matter is easy to handle. The things that you asked this servant to do just now, this servant has completed them. I also took the opportunity to go to Charming Palace. Although Shengguan Mei's complexion is not very good, she did not lose her life because of this. She should be fine after a few days of rest. Moreover, this was a good thing for Shen young lady. She was bedridden and unable to incite the imperial consort to do anything to Shen young lady. You can't play those little tricks behind my back. Nanny Zhu, compared to me, you still don't know Huiru's character as well as I do. Her daughter is carved from the same mold as her. I can only say that Huiru's character and scheming are even better than her mother's. Do you think that just because she is bedridden, she can't play these little tricks behind the back? Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Prince Regent, Provoking Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 900. Xian sneered, let me tell you, the more sick she is in bed, the more she can play these little tricks. In this way, no one will suspect her. Tell me, how smart is this girl? Compared to her mother, she's not the slightest bit inferior. In the past, she couldn't win, but it didn't mean that she couldn't win now. Xian closed his eyes. I'm tired. I want to have a good rest during this time. The Lantern Festival will start tomorrow. Accompany me out of the palace to watch the Lantern Festival. On the computer, yes. The Lantern Festival in the North Underworld was the liveliest every year. No matter when it was, the Empress Dowager would go to the Lantern Festival in person. Because there were many memories of her when she was young. Seeing that she was really tired, Nanny Zhu bowed respectfully, Empress Dowager, please have a good rest. I will go outside to guard you. At this moment, in Charming Palace. Don't worry, Your Highness. I believe that the Prime Minister will seek justice for you. Covered Shengguan Mei with a brocade quilt. This was the first time she saw the Empress Dowager in such a weak state. Her face was pale and bloodless. She lay on the bed, unable to move. First published on the new August Chinese website, her clothes were thin, and the wounds on her back were even more unsightly. The imperial physician had just prescribed her medicine, and she had carefully applied it on the Empress Dowager. Although the Empress Dowager had gritted her teeth, she had been strong and didn't complain about the pain. But she knew that even the soldiers who led the troops in battle couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when their skin and flesh were split open. The Empress was just an ordinary woman, yet she endured the pain to this extent and didn't say a word. Yu's eyes were red. Your Highness, how could the Emperor be so heartless to treat you so cruelly for a foreign slut? In fact, Yu was also flogged, but the eunuch who hit her was her old lover, so he put something on her back. The Emperor's main target of punishment was Shengguan Mei. She was only a female servant and was not worthy of those people's attention. So, when the 50 strokes of the flogging fell, she only pretended to be unconscious. When she came back, other than some pain, she did not feel anything else. Shengguan Mei had long known that she had affairs with many eunuchs in the harem, but she still protected her. He also knew that he was the master. If the punishment was too light, it would be noticed. Therefore, he didn't have any reason to be angry at you, Fortunately, she was not injured. Otherwise, no one would be as considerate as she was in taking care of herself. However, what she wanted to mention now was not the emperor, but Sheng Wanhe. When he heard her say that Sheng Wanhe would definitely seek justice for him, he couldn't help but laugh. She suddenly smiled. I don't think he came to the palace for me, but for that old woman in Xi'an Palace. Empress Dowager. Sheng Wanmei closed her eyes tiredly. Who has he truly loved? During those years in the Prime Minister's residence, the one who truly loved and spoiled her was her mother. What did that have to do with him? Although he would occasionally pull her aside to talk to her and kiss her face affectionately when he came back from court, she knew that behind this gentleness and love, there were no feelings at all. In fact, there was even disgust and impatience. Even when he spoke gently to his mother thought that this gentleness was only present when he was with her. Little did she know that this wasn't gentleness. Behind that gentleness, there was indifference, impatience, and even more, disgust. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature.